Welcome to Triggered Care. I'm Alex, and today is going to be a little bit different because we have a guest with us, and she'll be introducing herself shortly. And we'll be discussing the 2025 mandate from the Heritage Foundation. But first, let my friend introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Squin, and I talk about a lot of things on TikTok pretty often around trauma, leaving religion, that sort of thing. So yeah, and right now what we're talking about is, like Alex said, 2025 Presidential Transition Project, also known as the Mandate for Leadership or the Conservative Promise.
The conservative promise, something that we all love. And for first time viewers, I'm Alex. I've been on YouTube for a little while, I've been on TikTok for a little while. I talk about trauma cycles and domestic violence and politics when it hurts my feelings. And this is definitely something that has deeply hurt my feelings. And I'm so grateful to Squin for joining me in this very painful process of reading what the corporate goons have to say.
I'm also grateful for you. As you know, I was going to kind of try to tackle this alone, and I am so happy that I'm not doing that. So,
Right. Okay, so first let's dig into the mission statement.
yeah, so the mission statement. So the mission statement is uh, the 2025 Presidential Transition Project is the conservative movement's unified effort to be ready for the next conservative administration to govern at 12 noon, January 2025. Welcome to the mission. That is literally how this document starts.
That it is. And for those of you who have not heard of this document, what the mission is pretty much saying is that they're getting ready for their conservative president to come in for the next election. And this book is supposed to be a guide for whatever godly man, you know that they're thinking about Trump, but whatever godly man they get into the White House.
The godliest of men, as everyone knows.
Yes, yes. That's why he's so orange. God colors colors people orange. Um,
Yeah.
so
So also as part of this opening statement, they talk about how this long march of cultural Marxism has brought us to this point in time when liberty and freedom are under siege, and we need the task is to reverse the tide and bring us back to our original moorings. It's very that.
yeah, it's the white supremacy is dripping so thickly off of it. It's wild. There's a lot of dog whistles. Today we'll be going over the first promise that's listed in the foreword because this document is so thick with dog whistles and just hurtful language and violent language that it requires care and it requires time to really sort out what they're saying and what sort of policies will come out of this monstrosity that corporations paid for. Um,
Yep.
so to get started, a few of the dog whistles that I just gleamed off of there right away. The Great Awakening, which they attribute to being like a crazy leftist cult, which is really just people wanting human rights. Like human rights activists are the Great Awakening, you know, that's threatening the American family. They mention the globalist elites, which, for anybody who knows about conspiracies and the far right pipeline, globalist elites, Jewish people. It's always a terrible dog whistle. It's a terrible way to mask the anti Semitism of
And
shit.
at best it's anti-intellectualism, right? So yeah, it's just
Well, and they talk about globalist elites when in reality they're paid by the elites. They are actually funded by the elites of this country. And so to paint off this like, oh, the real bad guys. Remember back in Nazi Germany how it was just the Jewish elite hurting everything?
Yep.
It's such an old myth. And it's almost insulting to humans' intelligence that this is still working.
And
That this
speaking of Germany, we've also been looking at the corollaries between this document and Mein Kampf, and there are a lot of them.
a concerning amount. Yes. They also mention how they need to rescue the children, how they need to reclaim the culture, revive the economy, and defeat the left and put a war on the left. So just like there was a war on drugs and a war on terror, now they're exchanging all those other words just to be left now. And that's terrifying because that's quite a few Americans that they're declaring war on in this document that's meant for the next president of the United States. This is terrorism.
Onward, Christian soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah, it's state sponsored terrorism,
Yep.
which is absolutely terrifying.
And they specifically, in the Great Awakening, they specifically call out numerous times, just in the forward, trans people. They call it the ideal of transgenderism, or they always call it something that makes it. They put it in quotes.
Right.
It's never just trans people. They're like the normalization of transgenderism.
Right. Well, they conflate those things to be ideologies and to be cults.
Yes.
But it's like
calling,
that's projection, my bro.
Yeah. Like calling homosexuality a lifestyle choice. It's like that's not what it is.
Who would decide these things? That's just so wild to think that humans would decide these things. And
yeah, you know what I love? I love waking up and just like wanting everyone to hate me and who I am and everything about me. Then just I would like my life to be way more difficult, please. Like yeah, no one chooses that.
It's so wild. It's so wild. And then let's get into there's 4 promises, but today we're only going through the first one. And I think you were going to introduce the first promise.
Oh, sure. So promise number 1, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. So speaking of dog whistles, restoring the family, what kind of family? What do they mean? What did they mean when they say family? Talking about protecting children. Okay, what children? Whose children? From whom? Who are you protecting them from? You're not protecting them from gunmen that come through and just shoot up schools. Are you protecting trans kids? No. In fact, you would like to take away their medical care. So when they say things like restoring family and protecting children, it never means what those words actually mean.
Right. Well, and then just in the first paragraph, it alludes to how there's real people.
Yeah. So I'm sure that even in our education system, most people have heard about the way that Mein Kampf started talking about Jewish people as if they were vermin and rats. Dehumanizing someone is the first step in genocide. And right here it says its purpose. So in many ways, the entire point of centralizing political power, which is what they're accusing the left of doing, is to subvert the family. Its purpose is to replace people's natural loves and loyalties with unnatural ones. So it's already calling people that don't love in the way that they approve of unnatural, and that their choices are unnatural. Later in the same paragraph, they say the name real people, in italics, give to things we do together is community, not government. So if they're real people, what are we? How is that not dehumanizing? They're saying that we are not real people.
Well, and also they throw in words like unnatural in there to elicit the idea of LGBTQ.
Oh yeah, they are trying to elicit disgust,
Mm-hmm.
disgust in people that are disgusted by people who love people that they don't approve of,
Or
right?
even interracial couples. Like they are
Sure.
just they're calling on all their followers with that, just with that simple word of unnatural. They're calling on their followers to dig into their toolkit of scapegoating to
Yes.
process their own stuff and be like, okay, now is the time to hate. Now it's the time for me to sort out these really intense emotions that I'll never sort out for myself because I'm too busy hyper focusing that on another group.
And
It's
we were talking earlier. I'm working on a an article right now about book bans, and I was talking to a pastor that said that the basis of that ideology is that people want to feel that they belong, that they are doing what is right and good, and so they other people and then sort of naturally go to the place where what they're doing is bad and wrong. But then that, I mean, that leads to dehumanization, right? Calling people like, you did a bad thing, you're a bad person, you're an evil person, you shouldn't exist. Like it's not a far, it's a much shorter walk to genocide than most people realize.
right. Well, and another part of genocide that I don't think people comprehend is that in order for it to work, there has to be mass delusion of a black and white worldview. And that's what we're witnessing. We're witnessing a mass delusion of a black and white worldview. Whereas mature adults would not see the world that way. But it's not that all the adults are necessarily immature, it's that we are overstimulated, overwhelmed, and regressing to early childhood. And part of that is being terrorized by our surroundings. But at the same time, it's
Yeah.
just
This kind of rhetoric does prey on people for sure.
yes.
So here, let's let's get through. Let's get
Yes. Paragraph 2. Racist dog whistles. We're having fun today. So in
so
paragraph
fun.
2, they're talking about, I don't have the document in front of me, but I've read this so many times by this point. 40% of children have unwed mothers. 70% of those children come from black families. And there is another racist dog whistle for us to look at, as they imply that black men aren't good fathers, or maybe that black women don't choose a mate right, when in reality, they are murdering, imprisoning, and literally torturing black people, especially black men.
And the the situation that led up to where we are now makes it impossible for people that were enslaved to have the sorts of like generational wealth and other advantages that a lot of other people have, a lot of us have.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we literally have ghettos for black people, and they're called the projects because it is a government project. And when I was in high school, that was the first Blues Clues that I got to, that we live in a messed up place, was reading about ghettos in the cities, and then realizing, oh, just like in Germany, just like they had Jewish ghettos in Germany. There's a spot in every city where they put the undesirables that's completely based off of skin color. And that is so barbaric.
and I mean,
It's
we could, if we have more time, we could get into like evolution, or not evolution, sorry, environmental racism and redlining and yeah, gerrymandering, all of the ways in which we white supremacy has
fucked over.
created and maintained these systems over generations.
So then, what's next? Okay, so paragraph 2 was racist dog whistles. Then paragraph 3 through paragraph 5, it talks about saving children and church things, which I'll throw over to Squin now.
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk about marriage and how marriage saves families, and how the world has never seen a thriving, healthy, free, and prosperous society where most children grow up without their married parents. Which, oh, like, we made up marriage, like it's not okay. Anyway, yeah. So uh, they want families to be nuclear families. And so when they talk about families, that's what they're talking about. And then they talk about the left and how the left is trying to destroy those things. They mentioned that we are coming after them. We are threatening the tax exempt status of churches and charities. I mean, the IRS has really, really clear laws about what the church can and cannot do. And when churches engage in political activities, they are the ones that are infringing on the law and threatening their own status as tax free. I think they just don't want us calling them out on it. Yeah, I don't know. And then, did you want to talk about the terms that they want to purge?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so yeah, the end of that paragraph is they, us, the leftists, they will soon turn to Christian schools and clubs with the same totalitarian intent, which again, they are the ones threatening their own tax exempt status. We're not coming after them. Yeah.
No, no, we're not. But they need to save the children, the children's clubs, apparently, from our totalitarian intent. And then the very next paragraph is when they offer a list of terms to be deleted. From where are they deleting?
Oh, everything. Every federal
Deleting
rule,
terms.
agency regulation, contract, grant, regulation, and piece of legislation that exists. That's their
Okay.
words.
So let's go through these very dangerous words. Sexual orientation and gender identity, which they call SOGI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, apparently. Gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule. Yep, and then just like Squin said,
But
uh,
but that is them depriving us of our First Amendment rights, saying that we are not allowed to use certain language. Like that's
deleting terms from narrative, like social discussions, is totalitarian. And it was just the previous paragraph where they were accusing leftists of being totalitarian against the church youth groups when leftists have never spoken about church youth groups.
it's what we always talk about with the projection, right? Like a cheating spouse is going to accuse their partner of cheating. Like they're like
Yes,
you're grooming children, and it's like look at all of the evidence of all the churches that are grooming children. You're
exactly.
totalitarian. Like here is clear evidence that you are in fact totalitarian. So yeah, just
Yes.
yeah.
And this, I mean, I don't even think I need to talk about all the horribleness of what they just listed off of. It's very anti-LGBTQ, it's very anti-woman, it's
Oh my
very
god, yeah.
anti-AFAB.
I need a hysterectomy, but I'm not allowed to talk about reproductive rights or reproductive health. I mean, like,
Well,
what?
and reproductive health means so much more than just pregnancy, but even when it comes to pregnancy, hospitals are not doing a good job of keeping people alive because they're
No,
not allowed to give the medical care that they need to give to people.
our
It's
our mortality rates are fucking ridiculous. Yeah.
and it's getting worse, especially after Roe v. Wade, but we'll bring that
Oh
up
yeah, of
later cuz they bring that up later and oh my.
course they do.
So after they give us a list of words that we shouldn't talk about, um they then in the next paragraph they talk about how they need to outlaw pornography, but then they equate pornography to transgender ideology and the sexualization of children.
Exactly. Yeah. They just it's all lumped in together. So yeah.
Right. Um
Okay.
so
I know we have a lot to get through. So like we're
I
not we're not going into big depth on any of these things, but
right, well, Squin, weren't you talking about how this has affected librarians and how this has
oh,
affected like workers in universities and in school systems in general?
So I live in one of the safe states, but I put it in quotes because it contains what is probably going to be the first library to be completely shut down because of some of the book bans that are happening right now. And it started because in one story there was a mention of a child that had two dads, and that is all. Um, and yeah, so starting there, uh, people from Moms for Liberty and some other groups like that, other terrorist groups, uh, started saying that librarians were, oh gosh, what did they call? Oh, librarians are grooming our children. The libraries are cesspits. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I get that there's a whole romance section where there's all kinds of stuff that isn't for children going on. I mean, not everything is for kids, people, but the things that are for kids are fine. And these fucking people, I don't know, sorry, just it's a lot. I will link in the comments when I get this article written and published up that we're working on, because there's a lot of info there that's just it's awful. The library director was ended up getting fired because there were so many people speaking out against him because he said no, I'm not going to I'm not going to not have books that have LGBTQ representation in the library. That's ridiculous. So anyway.
Yes, exactly. And then they mention how schools should serve the parents, and
Mhm.
that the schools are there to serve the parents.
Well,
And
parents'
it's
rights. Watch out for that term too. That's another dog whistle. Parents' rights.
right, which goes right into what you're talking about with the Moms of Liberty and
Mhm.
encouraging groups like that to literally bully and harass our schools
Mhm.
into becoming more white supremacist and more hate filled.
Christian nationalist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yeah, did you want to talk about? I, they keep on talking about gender ideology, and that sort of thing, critical race theory. But I know that they go into reassigning, so not just villainizing librarians, but then they go on to villainize doctors, right?
Yes, they love villainizing experts. I've found out, they like
It's the unfortunate
villainizing the
thing.
climate scientists, the doctors, the teachers, the nurses, pretty much
Yep.
anybody who has passion for their job and is trying to help people. They do
I
not like them.
agree with them.
And so yes, in the next part, they mention how horrible it is for parents and doctors to reassign a child's gender, which they are alluding to trans children who only socially transition when they are young. There is no doctor, there is no parent who would want to perform a sex affirm affirmation surgery on a child. That is for adulthood, and both children and parents know this. And there are still things that they can do in conjunction with their doctor and their psychiatrist to transition that is not altering in that way. But they like to
It's sorry.
conflate it, right? But the
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
is,
It's usually a haircut or like a change of name or something. Like it's yeah. It's
right.
they there's this huge. So many people believe that children are having surgeries, and it's not happening. It's not
Well,
happening.
they refuse to get educated on it. They refuse to actually listen to trans people who have been through that experience.
That
Uh,
is one of the things I have to keep reminding myself that they have access to all of the same information we do, and
yeah,
if they wanted to know the truth, they could know the truth.
yeah. And then the very frustrating part about it is that there are doctors and parents who are changing their child's gender, but it only happens to intersex children when they're babies before they can have any say on what sort of life they want to lead. Doctors and their parents decide how to mutilate their genitals to fit into a box, into a binary that actively is doing more harm than good. So that is an actual issue that
But
I
again, it's their issue. That's what they're doing, and then they accuse us of doing it again.
exactly, exactly. It's the traditional types and the conservative types of doctors and parents who would try to force their baby into a binary that very obviously their baby doesn't fit into. And if it's not a life altering situation, that baby shouldn't be forced into that sort of situation immediately. There's plenty of science and resources out there to educate people what it means to be intersex and to not have that dramatic life-changing moment happen before the person is really conscious of what's going on. But of course, they're not talking about that. They're not talking about a real issue. They bring up a real point that could have some real value to it, but they're putting it to a completely different issue and conflating what it means to be a trans child.
Yeah. So yeah, we're yeah.
These people. So we're nearly at the end of this first promise, and the next little bit is about big tech being evil and, you know, getting kids' attention through apps and getting the kids addicted to the apps. And
Which I think again is anti-intellectualism. I think they don't want kids to have access to, right? They don't want CRT, so they don't want kids to have access to education that they don't mandate, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
Think about how
also,
much people learn on TikTok. Think about how much we learn from TikTok. They don't want kids to learn.
oh, my kid is always researching.
Yeah.
He's always researching. He researches about corporations and food companies, and he researches all of that, and he teaches me stuff all the time. All of
Awesome.
the time. Whereas, like, I'm pretty sure he's smarter than me, and he's 8, which is a little
That's
bit
awesome.
terrifying, but I am also extremely proud.
Cool.
But yeah, it is very much just a way to censor information and to
Oh
try to
yes.
keep people in the dark on purpose. That's why they want the parents to dumb down the curriculum in the schools and to make it white nationalists. And I
And
think they're gonna eventually push to have these parents homeschool, and so that will
yeah.
be an actual radicalization camp.
Well, and they're I mean, you know too about what's happening with legislation and about school dollars for public schools going to charter schools and private schools. So I think just weakening public schools is definitely
Yes.
top of mind for these
Yeah.
programs. Um, they,
Exactly.
they, they say this: every threat to family stability must be confronted. And that's what they talk about in between the anti-trans paragraph and the big tech is out to get your children paragraph.
Yes. And then they finish off strong with a good thing we got rid of Roe v. Wade. And we need to expand on that now to make it a federally banned practice. So they want to federally ban abortion in the US so it's not left up to states, which is not surprising.
No, it's not. But the way that they say that it should be joyfully celebrated, Roe v. Wade. When there is so much data, not leftist data, not from leftist spaces, just straight up numbers that show more women having comorbidities when they come in with any reproductive health issues, not just pregnancies. When they have women who are not in danger of dying, but are bleeding on the table, stuff like just horrible anecdotes, yes, but also just numbers, just the math. It's unconscionable that we are so far behind other developed nations that are similar to our level of development, but our infant mortality and maternal mortality rates are just through the roof.
Well, wasn't it just that some European experts or whatever named the US a third world country now based on our standard of living?
We so like that terminology has been kind of retired, but like yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah, right. I'm just repeating something that I heard on a TikTok, so
yeah.
I'm not super well educated on it.
Oh, it's okay. But yeah, there are multinational organizations that have warnings out about the US that it's not a safe place for people to travel to right
What
now.
is that called again? Underdeveloped
Oh,
country?
underdeveloped? Yeah, yeah. We are
Okay.
a developed nation though. We're just I don't know what do you call a regressive developed nation? I'm not really sure.
collapsing empire. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. How about that? Late
Right.
stage capitalist hellscape? Yeah.
Exactly. And then the last line is, in summary, the next president has a moral responsibility to lead the nation in restoring a culture of life in America again. So this is a callback to Make America Great Again. Very, very blatantly. So,
And pro-lifeism, right? The culture of
yes,
life, right?
a moral responsibility, which,
Where is their moral responsibility to take care of children who are getting shot in their classrooms? Where is their moral responsibility to taking care of families that are losing their children because they can't afford to have them and they're losing their children into foster care? Like, where's this burning need to protect children when it comes to children on the border that are being kept away from their families?
right, it's very obviously a scam. It's a very, very large scam. And the contributors to this, we're going to share a list of names of people who helped write this. And we're not going to independently research these people, but anybody who's watching, and if you like researching, feel free to look into the people who are writing this and funding this.
Yeah, please look at this list and any of these names, just find out who they are because it would be good to know who's behind this rhetoric and what they stand for. Like,
Well,
what else do they do? Are they running for office in your town? Are they, who are they? Who are these people?
right. And a lot of these people, like the Heritage Foundation, gets its money through corporate donors. And they're pretty much spokespeople for corporations, but a lot of these people are also professors. They're also a part of the community. They're a part of their churches. They're a
They're
part.
pastors, right?
Exactly. And so, in order for them to make this hate document that has way too much in common with Mein Kampf and to be comfortable in America is a bit of an issue. It's no longer about free speech. They use the rhetoric of free speech to embolden hate speech and to shut down the human right violations that it is.
They want free speech only for their speech, right? Because they say very clearly that they want many terms to be
Right.
purged.
Right. They want to eradicate an entire ideology of people, which is just marginalized folk. When they
It's the
s-
it's
yeah.
sorry, it's the guise of freedom of religion when what they want is their religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but it's summed up to so much more than just religion.
Oh yeah.
It's white supremacy, and white supremacy always takes whatever religion, which is usually Christian, right? But it just takes that and then it weaponizes it because the Old Testament is ripe with stories that you can weaponize against a marginalized group of people, because of how wild it is. And then like somehow God's personality completely changes in the New Testament, but they will never discuss that. They will never discuss Christ's teachings, even though they're called Christians. Like, oh,
Oh, so here let's
yes.
bring it back to I just I want to close this out with something else that's in the forward, which is the project. This project, and they're naming the grander scale of this project, is built on four pillars. So this volume is pillar one. This entire 900 something page volume is only pillar one. And then pillar two is a personal database that allows candidates to build their own professional profiles and their coalition members. So yeah, it's basically them grooming the next president. Pillar three is a presidential administration academy. So they're going to even further educate the coming president. And then pillar four is what they're calling the playbook. And it's all in capital letters. So yeah, sounds a little scary. It says, we are forming agency teams and drafting transition plans to move out upon the president's utterance of so help me God. So yeah, fun times.
But we'll
Yeah,
be here to read it with you guys. And we'll be here to try to decipher this madness and to offer you validation that you are not the only one who's noticing how wild things are, and offering encouragement. Stay in here with us. We know that it's really stressful and really intense, but you guys make it better. You guys make it way better. So thank you for
Thank you.
watching, and thank you for sharing in this thing with us. This very America thing. I don't even know the right
It's,
descriptor word for it.
it's terrifying and horrific, but yeah, that's we're gonna make it. Here we
Yeah,
are.
next time on We're Sad.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's see. Next week we're gonna be going over promise number 2, right?
Yep, dismantle the administrative state and return self governance to the American people. So that's what y'all have to look forward to for next week.
Hey, yeah, let us know if you find any information on the authors of this document.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah. And I hope all y'all have good ones.